Nearly 3 decades ago, Daytona International Speedway entertained a bold experiment. Off-road racing on a man-made track in a stadium was born and christened with the name Supercross. The success it has enjoyed since then brings us back to where it all began. For the 400th time, the gate will drop. And for the 400th time, a 250 Supercross winner will be crowned. The most likely candidate for that honor is Ricky Carmichael. The Honda rider is the defending champion and has won 6 times already this season. Plus, he's almost unbeatable on home soil in the Sunshine State. So, can the most dominant rider in Supercross since Jeremy McGrath continue to reign supreme? Or will his rivals topple him from the top of the heap? Pull up a chair, but not too close. Supercross from Daytona is coming at you on Speed.
Welcome to Flight Week 2003 here in Daytona Beach. It's the Daytona Supercross by Honda. The weather conditions, not very good. Today, the racetrack is nasty, and that's a good thing. Hi, everybody. I'm Ralph Shaheen. Welcome to Daytona Beach, Florida, here at the Daytona International Speedway. A nasty racetrack, perfect for Supercross racing. It's going to be wild and crazy out there. The guys are going to get dirty. The racing is going to be hard. But one thing is for sure, we're going racing here today. We had a lot of trouble with bad weather here on the racetrack yesterday. Couldn't get any of the road racing in, but we will definitely go racing with the high-flying antics of Supercross here today, and it should be a spectacular show. Now, tomorrow, we will hopefully be able to get the road racing action actually in. The Daytona 200 preview show will begin around 9 a.m. Eastern Time live. The MB&A 250 Grand Prix at 9:30. And then we'll have the Pro Honda Oils U.S. Supersport race, 10:30 a.m. First time ever here in the United States, the BMW Motorrad Boxer Cup event, 11:30 a.m. live here on Speed. We're just beginning at that point. The pre-race show for the Daytona 200 by Arai at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. The Daytona 200 by Arai will come on at 1 a.m. Eastern live, and then after the 200, the Genuine Suzuki Accessories Super Stock race. It is going to be an action-packed day here tomorrow. Today, though, plenty of great Supercross action headed your way, and calling the race for us today will be Brian Trevor, and a man who has won this race 2 times, Rick Johnson.
Thanks, Ralph. The esteemed Mr. Shaheen sending it up here. And, Rick, we look out over the Speedway, and, of course, yesterday everybody was hiding under the tents. Today they're out there, and, well, it should be sunshine. They're going to race anyway.
Well, that's what you have with motocross and supercross. Rain or shine, you run it. And here at Daytona, it has a lot of sand, so they can get away with a lot more rain than most tracks. A lot of the supercrosses where it's just wood, you have a lot of trouble underneath because the water has nowhere to go. Here you have sand, it's got a place to go. Well,
Gary Bailey and his crew doing a great job working the midnight oil last night, pumping all the water out as best they could, and getting the track ready to go. And so far, this Supercross season, sort of like last year, has been really all about Ricky Carmichael.
Yeah, Ricky Carmichael really, really strong. If you look at the standings, he's been the dominant rider throughout the year. He's had a couple bobbles. Chad Reed has beat him straight up a couple times, but Ricky Carmichael, the dominant man.
6 wins for Carmichael to 2 by Reed, and Ezra Lusk with a single win is back there a little bit further in the point standings, but it's all about Ricky Carmichael so far this season with 6 victories. Now, he's standing by with another member of our broadcast team. Let's go downstairs to Greg White. Greggy.
Well, with a 22-point lead, Ricky Carmichael's starting to get in kind of manage mode. This championship is looking good for you. What about Daytona, man? This track is looking nasty.
Yeah, it's nasty. I'll tell you, a lot of rain this week at Bike Week, and man, it's a bummer. You know, it was going to be a gnarly Daytona race if it was dry. It was going to be probably one of the roughest that I've ever been to, but just because the track was really busy and, you know, not or tighter than before, didn't have a long straightaway. But, you know, a little bit of rain today, so we'll see what happens.
And what about Stanton, dude? He works with you, and you're about to tie his record. Is he all nervous about it?
I think he wants Ernesto Fonseca to win today, since, you know, anyway, he wants it to be a Honda, but, you know, he's cool about it, and, you know, I'm going to go out there and do the best I can do. You know, I'm not thinking about the record. You know, it is in the back of my mind, but first things first, and that's to try to win the race and secure myself for the championship.
Well, winning here at Daytona, Rick Johnson, no stranger to Ricky Carmichael. He may not be thinking about the record, but a lot of other people are. And if he wins here today, he'll move to within 2 on the all-time list behind Jeremy McGrath.
Yeah, he's already passed my record, so I really don't care one way or the other. But Ricky Carmichael, fierce competitor. And you're looking at the all-time 500 outdoor, 250 outdoor, 125 in Supercross. So it's a combined event. So Ricky has been one of the guys that's been motocross and Supercross. Jeremy elected to move away from Supercross, and now he was just running Supercross, but Ricky running both.
Yeah, and Ricky Carmichael has not ridden 500, so his record is all the more amazing considering that and how young he is still with a lot of years ahead of him. Now let's take a look at the track that they're going to be competing on here today. It's different this year. Gary Bailey, the track designer, decided to take a little bit of a new direction, and we've got a pretty interesting race course out there. Our Joe Rocket track map.
Well, as you're looking at the track, you see a lot of different track out there. You see that white dirt, that's shale. It's very packed, it's very hard. You see the black, that's sand. That's what's underneath the grass. That's the natural soil here. That stuff gets very deep, very soft, and that's where you see the tires run the most aggressive tire that they can get, because that's the majority of the track. You look about 90%. Also, Gary Bailey has brought in more dirt this year. You see the red clay, which it's a little bit slippery from this rain, and it gets some grooves in it, but they did a great job covering the jumps in the rain, pumping out the deep spots. So we're going to have a great Daytona race. It's not that much different than it would be if it didn't rain, because it always gets soft, it always gets rough. It's more like a motocross than it is a Supercross. So this track is going to be rough, demanding, and it's going to beat guys up. It's a long, fast race.
250s and 125s are going to be running here today. The 125 East Series goes to round 4. So far it's been Branden Jesseman with a pair of wins that leads in the point standing. So we'll have to see if young Mr. Jesseman can pull off a win here at the fabled Daytona Supercross. Here are your point standings. Mike Brown with a win is sitting in second spot, and Brock Sellards in third, as you can see.
Yeah, a lot of these guys are running really strong. Jesseman has really stepped up his program, his training. I'm working with him at Suzuki. I'm very impressed with him. Mike Brown, champion in the past. So you got a lot of great riders, but this is the great equalizer. Sand steals horsepower. We'll see who's got it today.
Well, it should be a lot of fun. And we're up here in the booth getting ready for it. We know we're going racing here today, just like Ralph Shaheen said. Ralph, let's go back to you, huh?
Well, that's exactly right, Brian. And this is a bit of a historical day here in Supercross competition. For the 400th time in the history of the series, somebody will take a 250cc Supercross checkered flag. It's incredible how many 250cc Supercrosses have actually been contested. The 400th here this afternoon. Now, Dave Despain is usually here on Speed Channel when we're talking about motorcycles, but Dave had to rush back to Charlotte to do Wind Tunnel last night. He's on his way back to be with us for tomorrow's coverage. Before he went to Charlotte, he put a piece together for us to tell us his thoughts on what he sees in Supercross racing today.
Well, as we get set to find out who's going to win Daytona today, my thoughts turn to perennial dominance. That's usually not a good thing in racing. Half the fun is the suspense. Who's going to win this race? Yet in Supercross, we almost always know the answer. Throughout the 90s, it was Jeremy McGrath dominating the races, claiming the majority of the championships. When we passed the millennium, the story didn't change, only the name of the lead character. Ricky Carmichael now dominates this sport as totally as McGrath ever did, this year as strong as ever. And has Supercross suffered as a result of all this? Well, I certainly don't see the evidence. Week in and week out, it fills the biggest sports stadiums in America. It has become this country's largest two-wheeled attraction. Why? Two reasons. The spectacular aerobatics that these athletes perform, no matter the position for which they're racing, and the fact that Supercross just drips extreme sports attitude. Kids love it, moms and dads too. So, is today's outcome predictable? Absolutely. One of two things will happen. Ricky Carmichael will ride into the Daytona record book, tying Jeff Stanton's record for consecutive victories in this toughest Supercross of them all. Or we'll see the upset of the year. Either way, I'd say it's worth watching.
The Daytona Supercross by Honda coming up today here on Speed Channel. Stay with us. It's going to be a good one.
The Daytona Supercross by Honda on Speed is brought to you by Honda, the company that defines performance in motorcycles, ATVs, personal watercraft, and scooters. And Chevy Trucks, the most dependable, longest-lasting trucks on the road.
This week's competitors entered the hallowed grounds of Daytona. The Aussie settled in third off the start, but it wasn't long before he moved up. Chad Reed seems to be sizing up Mike Brown right now for a pass.
Yeah, stays a little bit lower than Brown, and now he pulls up next to him. And now it looks like he gets a run and moves into second place. So Chad Reed, our series point leader, is now in second place.
Grant Langston, the leader, was next.
Now Reed takes it in a little deep, but Langston
Finally takes the lead, but makes a mistake. Langston goes into the bail. Langston gets back up in time for third as Chad Reed goes on to claim his 4th victory of the season en route to the 2002 Eastern title for Yamaha. That was last season. Welcome back to right now at the Daytona Supercross by Honda here in Daytona Beach, Florida. Brian Drever and Rick Johnson upstairs getting ready for main events. But before we do that, we're going to take a look back at the highlights of the heats that happened earlier today. There were 2 of them. In the first, the guys in second and third place in points overall, Brock Sellards and Mike Brown duking it out for the win.
Brock Sellards taking that ride that Chad Reed had last year with the Yamaha Troy, but Mike Brown did not get a very good start, but makes a lot of ground this first lap, gets into second place. Mike has spent some time over in Europe. When you race over there, you got to deal with mud. So Mike was very comfortable, made up a lot of ground. Steve Boniface, we're watching here. Another one of the riders, French rider that's comfortable with the mud, was working his way through the pack. But here was the race between Brown and Sellards.
Boniface eventually finishing 4th, but up front the lead seesawed back and forth. With Brown taking it from Brock Sellards.
Mike Brown very comfortable, but here he makes a big mistake. Gets out in front, washes the front end. Sellards a little tap, but was very kind, did not run him over.
Sellards picked up the lead. Mike Brown stayed up in time to get in second position.
But Brock Sellards, his fastest lap of this race was a 1:32, so very strong finish on that YZ250F.
Brock Sellards taking the win in heat number 1, moving easily to the main event. Mike Brown held on to second position. Troy Adams 3rd, and Steve Boniface in 4th. Mud, a big problem here. And there are your results. The top 9 will transfer directly to the main, starting with Clinton Sheely. Everybody will have to go through the last chance qualifiers to try to make it to that main event here today. Heat number 2 of the 125s. Take a look here as Branden Jesseman was out in front. Ryan Mills had a great start. He was battling with Kelly Smith for a while.
Those 2 riders going back and forth, but it was this man. Branden Jesseman got out in front, and there you see Kelly Smith going down very hard. Mills and Shea Bentley getting by, so his work is definitely in front of him.
After he had started out so well, he had to settle in and fight for even a qualifying transfer position. He eventually ended up in 5th spot, did Kelly Smith. You can see he came under pressure. No pressure up front for Branden Jesseman, however.
Shea Bentley here, 104, is the rider that was on the move. He was pushing towards Mills, but could never quite make the distance. A lot of riders can close the ground, but once you get on the back of somebody here at Daytona, that sand flies everywhere, and it takes a lot of the vision away. You'll see the riders working their goggles and their roll-offs all the time because vision is a major factor here.
Shea Bentley, former 125 East champion, working it up there and stays in 3rd spot. Ryan Mills just in front of him. As you said, Bentley could get to him, but couldn't get past him. No pressure whatsoever for Branden Jesseman out front, turning very fast lap times. In fact, 3 seconds a lap quicker than the heat before him.
Yeah, Branden Jesseman with his quickest lap of a 1:28, just took his time, stayed out in front, and I think ended up with an 11-second quicker heat. So that's going to give him the #1 pick for the main event, which is very important here at Daytona.
Checkered flag for Branden Jesseman, way out ahead of Ryan Mills. The margin of victory, 19 seconds, which was pretty big. Meanwhile, the guys coming in behind him included Shea Bentley, Brett Metcalfe, Kelly Smith.
Metcalfe was trying some different things, going wide, inside, outside, which you got to try, which he might know for the main event will help him out quite a bit.
So getting into the main once again, the top 9 riders out of the 10, whose names you see here. Kelly Smith rounding out the top 5 after he had such a good start. He was able to salvage a 5th place finish. So those men are all into the main event here in the 125. Branden Jesseman, the winner of the race. We talked to him just after his big win.
All right. Well, you sure tore him up in that heat race, man.
Oh, thanks. You know, my Sobe Suzuki got me out to a great start. I just rode my own race, got the triples down, and came away with the win.
Now, with all these fast guys in line, what's going to be the key to a win here?
Definitely get a good start. Stay out of trouble, put in 15 consistent laps, and if you do that, stay relaxed, I think you're going to be up there.
Talk about track conditions. Each time you go around the track, is it changing?
Oh, yes. The lines change every lap. You got to be smart, look ahead, and pick lines every lap. You know, they could be changed a lot.
Changing conditions, as told to Greg White, Rick Johnson, it's going to be that way all day.
Definitely. The guy who can work this track is going to be out front.
All right, well, we'll be right back. We got a lot more for the Daytona Supercross by Honda. Stay with us. Race but crashed. He will not compete. The man who was third in points will not be there, but lots of others will. Daytona 125 here, round 4 of the East Division in 125 Supercross. So we're ready to go, and so are the riders themselves. All the mechanics are down there making some last-minute engine revving. And Ricky Johnson, the champ here alongside of me, tell me what this is like. I mean, this is nerves. You got to have nerves of steel to deal with this, don't you?
Well, that's the one thing with Supercross and motocross that's different than most other sports. You start everybody all at once behind a gate. Now, there's different positions, inside versus outside, that can be better, but you also have to deal with the ruts. You cannot prep on the far side of the gate. You can do whatever you want behind with no tools. You can use your feet and pack down your starting position, but you cannot do anything on the other side of the gate. We're looking at Brock Sellards and Branden Jesseman side by side. The 2-point leaders that are dicing back and forth. Jesseman is in a little bit better spot because you always like to be on the inside if you're coming into a turn with your competitors. So look at these two guys, both of them very fierce competitors, and they don't mind rubbing a little paint.
You'll also be looking for the number 3 of Mike Brown out of Johnson City, Tennessee on a Kawasaki. He's sitting second in points right now. So the main players in this little drama are Jesseman, number 26, Brown, number 3, and Brock Sellards, number 18. There is Brownie.
Yeah, you'll see some of the riders reaching forward and clicking something in their front wheel. What they have now is a device that they can squeeze their suspension up, push a button, and it holds their suspension locked. As soon as they hit the brakes going into the first turn, it releases it, lets the suspension full travel, but it lets them get out of the gate a little bit harder, keeps it in that stink bug fashion so it doesn't want to wheelie as much. So if you see some riders or mechanics helping the riders out in the front wheel, that's what they're hooking up.
Guaranteed Pierre Carsmakers didn't have that gizmo on his bike when he won the first Daytona Supercross here.
Pierre Carsmaker is one of the toughest men in motocross. His training ritual, the crowd is going nuts. Everybody is excited about this Daytona Supercross, and the weather's cooperating with it. It's a little gray, but it's still great racing weather.
Jesseman, Brown, and Sellards side by side on the far side of the gate. A little bit of a sprinkle coming down out there right now, and there are the 3 men, 318 and 26, top 3 in points, and they're all going to be right next to one another going down into turn number 1.
Now, if you look, you can see Jesseman's forks working up and down. He's chosen not to lock down his forks because he wants a little more traction towards that rear wheel. So let's see if it works for him.
Off they go. The gate is down. The whole shot comes from 4 on the right side of the field, but out through the middle, it is one of the Yamahas, and it is Brock Sellards with the whole shot, and 3 riders clear of the field out in front. Curry actually with the whole shot, number 45.
And Branden Jesseman with a bad start, but works his way through the inside. But now we're looking at Shea Bentley, I think, pretty sure with the whole shot. He's running strong. He's a past Supercross champion, so watch Shea Bentley out in front on that Suzuki.
Paul Curry got the whole shot into turn number 1. He slipped back into 3rd spot. Sellards was 4th off the line, but now you're looking at the leaders, and Jesseman is right there. He had a very bad start. He was out 8th off the line across the finish line for the first time.
Jesseman and Brown both towards the back, but they both showed that they have a lot of speed. Shea Bentley was strong in the heat, and he's also a past champion, so he knows what to do out there. But those 2 guys had quicker times behind him.
Dribbling off the jumps right now. You're looking at number 45, and that is Curry, who got the whole shot. Paul Curry out of Wesley Chapel, Florida on a Yamaha.
The track is grooving up. They've done a really good job with opening up the corners, flattening some of the turns so the riders can run multiple lines. Ricky Carmichael was talking about how it's one line, but now you can see the riders getting side by side.
Challenge for the lead, and we are up front here taking a look at
Metcalfe. He gets a lead, he gets a run on Shea Bentley, and out to the front. We talked earlier about how strong the KTMs are. Their motor has always been their strong spot. If there is an Achilles heel on them, they don't have a linkage in the back suspension. They're working on that for next year, but motor is very, very strong on that 125 KTM.
Metcalfe bogging down just a little bit, and it gave a bit of a run there to Shea Bentley, but he's still out in front. It is Brett Metcalfe from California on the KTM 125 out in the front. Second place is Shea Bentley.
Metcalfe still very, very strong out in front. Like we said earlier, power is everything. But here we see Mike Brown, number 3 on that Kawasaki, and here comes Branden Jesseman. Those 2 riders have gone from 12th. Now they're in 3rd and 4th place. So that is your race. Watch those 2 riders. They're moving forward.
2 of the championship contenders up into 3rd and 4th position. Sellards is right behind them in 5th. So our championship guys were side by side at the start. Now they're nose to tail on the racetrack. Meanwhile, out in front is Brett Metcalfe.
Metcalfe is out front, and Bentley is feeling a lot of pressure. from Brown. Brown is all over him and working that traffic.
Here comes Mike Brown through the whoops. Up next to the tribal section of the racetrack, pulls alongside, takes over the number 2 spot from Shea Bentley. Can he hold it?
Runs it on the outside, but then Shea Bentley runs right around the outside on the next corner, which typically you don't see, but there goes Brown. Running, keeping his momentum up and keeping that power. But Bentley, a small guy, and that Suzuki is very, very strong. He gets back out in front of him.
What a fight. Brett Metcalfe coming under pressure right now with this great battle for second position. Shea Bentley holding on to him, and look through the whoops goes Mike Brown. Into the turn, bogs it down a little bit, but still holds on to the number 2 spot.
And Jesseman rounding off that top 4. So Jesseman being very patient. Same with Brown. Both of these guys can see the leaders, and they're just working lap by lap.
Great battle here for the number 2 spot. Meanwhile, Brett Metcalfe running scared out in front. Brown in the number 2 spot, starting to edge away just a little bit. And Sellards coming up from behind.
Well, here we see Jesseman working hard. Oh, and he gets a little bit swapping side by side. I love that shot where you can see the different riders working the different angles. But now Jesseman falling back just a little bit and gives Brown and Bentley a little bit of breathing room.
Mike Brown on the number 3 Kawasaki in second position, settling in, trying to get something going after the leader, Brett Metcalfe. And then behind him, it is Jesseman and Bentley in third spot still. Jesseman, Sellards running 4th and 5th.
There you see Metcalfe with the lead and Brown reeling him in slowly but surely. But if you notice, the riders are taking different lines. Some inside to outside, some outside to inside. And you can see that it works one versus the other. So Brown's a very, very talented, experienced rider. He's going to try a lot of different lines because remember in the heat race, he could catch up, but he would have trouble getting roosted, and he'd fall back. So maybe he won't make that same mistake. He'll ride some opposite lines.
Mike Brown gaining on the leader, Brett Metcalfe, 2.3 seconds at the finish line. Last time by, it's half that right now, and you can see Mike Brown coming on him really hard here as Metcalfe is still trying to hold on to the lead and doing it well.
And just out of our picture, Branden Jesseman has got by Shea Bentley, and now he's working on those 2 riders. So the race that we've been looking at all day long is going to be Brown and also Jesseman, but Metcalfe doing a very, very good job. Oh, and he goes down very hard.
And also,
Brown gets stuck. This is a gift for Jesseman, but Brown was able to get away. It's good to see Metcalfe get off. That was a very hard crash.
Mike Brown manages to hold on to the spot, but Jesseman is right there, and we're still having trouble trying to get the number 123 of Brett Metcalfe going. Now he does, and he's lost a whole bunch of positions.
That's the same place that took out David Villeman in the heat race. So Metcalfe, a very tough guy. And a lot of times you can fall in the same place with the same speed, but you do not. A lot of times you can hit a little softer. Take another look. He drops the front wheel, down he goes, and luckily he gets away from the bike, and the bike doesn't hit him. But Mike Brown gets stuck on top of him. But fortunately for Mike, he keeps it rolling. Jesseman keeps his head, and there's Shea Bentley. So a big gift for those guys, and very good to see Metcalfe get back up.
Mike Brown, your new leader, finished second here in the 125, both in 2001 and in 2002, looking to improve on that position by a spot and get on top of the podium. He's running out in front right now.
These are your 2 leaders, Jesseman, who's your point leader, and Brown, who's right up in there in the top 5 in points as well. Now that's your race going back and forth. Jesseman's sort of sizing him up, but Brown is a very, very tough guy. He's won outdoor championships, so do not expect him to roll over. He's going to fight with everything he's got.
He's been racing here in the Supercross by Daytona, going for the lead. Mike Brown is right there.
And Jesseman gets by, squeaks by on the inside. It's the same timing section where Brown was so strong. He got bit by the same place that he did so much damage on earlier.
So Branden Jesseman takes the lead here on the 3rd lap, coming up to finish 4 laps in this one. On the 4th lap right now.
And you got to remember how fast Jesseman was in his qualifier, so if Brown lets him get away, he's going to have trouble reeling him back in. So he needs to keep pressure on Jesseman, but Jesseman's got about 5 bike lengths, which is going to give him a little bit of breathing room.
Points leader in the 125 East Supercross Series, Branden Jesseman out in front right now. With a couple of seconds lead over Mike Brown as they cross the start-finish line that time. Brown still trying to hang in there and perhaps come back.
Jesseman with a very, very comfortable lead, but now Bentley has sort of gotten his second win. A lot of times you go out there, your first couple laps leading like that, you sort of pump up, but Bentley looks like he's working his way back up, and here comes Brock Sellards as well.
A 15-lap race, so there's still a long way to go. Jesseman has taken the lead over Mike Brown, with Shea Bentley in 3rd spot, Sellards 4th, and Kelly Smith running in 5th position. You're looking at the leader, Branden Jesseman, doing what he does at Daytona.
Something?
Your leader is Branden Jesseman on a Suzuki out of Pennsylvania at the Daytona Supercross by Honda. And Mike Brown is staying right with him. Jesseman took the lead fairly easily, but Mike Brown has gathered himself now and kept himself in striking distance, Ricky.
Mike Brown is a veteran. He's been to Europe. He's raced GPs. He's not going to give up. He's won 125 championships by staying in the fight. And Mike Brown is going to continue to do that. But even though Branden Jesseman has some of the quicker lap times on that Sobe Suzuki, he still has a lot to track, and he has to think about a lot. And also, take a look at Shea Bentley that's back there. He is not out of the game. Also, Brock Sellards. You can see the top 4 guys all in the hunt still.
Working after the leader, Branden Jesseman, is Mike Brown, the veteran who has at least raced here at Daytona at least 11 years. In 1992, he finished 12th in the 125 East Supercross event, so Brown really is a veteran.
Yeah, Brown's been around. He came over, he was riding, he was one of the young hopefuls, rode for Mitch Payton, the pro circuit, then went over to Europe and raced for a while, then came back with a second win, and that's when he won his outdoor championship.
Branden Jesseman has really lit this place up. Greg White, a little more on our leader?
Yeah, he just went by the pit where they hold up the pit boards, and on the pit board it said relax and practice. And the reason they're telling him practice, his mechanic wants him to think that this is practice, not the fact that he's racing, to help him relax and get him to the checkered flag. Brian?
Well, one of the things that Greg's talking about, I used to do that. You get out in front, you get the pressure of the world on your shoulders, and a lot of times when you go out and practice, you run fast lap after fast lap after fast lap, and his body's in shape to where he can run this whole moto no problem. It's the nerves of being out in front. So if he just goes out there and attacks the track, doesn't worry about Brown behind him, he should walk away with this.
His best lap, minute 27 seconds, while he was chasing the leader. Since he's been out front, he's running 28.8. That was the pace that he ran during his heat race.
Very, very strong. It's going to be interesting to see what kind of lap they finish on, because a lot of times the riders will fall quite tremendously, and that's due to the track, but he's running strong.
Branden Jesseman out in front right now. He's got to hold it together. Relax indeed is a very important thing for him to do as he clears a big jump here, one of the many at the Daytona Supercross by Honda track.
Shea Bentley cannot make a mistake. Brock Sellards, very, very strong. He's won one of the races earlier this year, so he cannot make a mistake. One ball, he's going to drop back to 4th place. So Shea Bentley better keep up the pressure, and also he can't lose sight of the leaders. He's got to keep in touch. Oh, and Jesseman goes down, coming right across the mechanics area, and he goes to 2nd, now to 3rd.
Brock Sellards coming up behind him, but he gets it going to hang on to 3rd position. So Branden Jesseman, the leader, goes down, but he manages to minimize the damage by staying in 3rd spot. Now Sellards really has something to shoot for.
Yeah, Sellards made a small mistake. Now we're going to take another look at the crash. Jesseman comes around. As he comes through the corner, he digs in. As he starts to accelerate, he just loses the front wheel, gets hooked in a rut, and goes down. Just a simple little crash. Really not, I hate to say it's not his fault, but that kind of thing happens. He just lost the front wheel, the knob he's grabbed a little bit, and back he goes. But if he runs the pace that he had earlier, he can catch Brown.
Mike Brown is your leader once again, running 128.2 seconds on his best lap. And Jesseman, though, up on his bike and back on the charge here from 3rd. He's going to be attacking 2nd position very quickly, and that is Shea Bentley.
You can see all 3 of those riders right there, and so now Branden still has a lot of time. He's pushing hard on Shea Bentley. He's got to keep his momentum going, but Shea's a tough guy. He's not going to let him he's not going to move out of the way in any way, shape, or form for Branden Jesseman.
Jesseman coming up from behind, looking to pull alongside, but Shea Bentley doing a good job. There he is in the air and lands it nicely. Right behind him it is Branden Jesseman. So this is the battle for 2nd position. Brock Sellards not too far behind, hoping perhaps that those two, by racing each other, might slow themselves down a little bit.
Jesseman's last lap was a 127.46, and Mike Brown was a 128.27, so almost a second quicker. But he cannot get stuck behind Bentley. He's got to get going.
There's Brock Sellards in 4th position right now, the man who's 3rd in points. Mike Brown is 2nd in points, but leading this race. Brock Sellards on his Yamaha out of Ohio.
Brock Sellards has been very, very strong, very fast in practice. Also, Brock rode some of the 120 or 250 on the West Coast earlier this year and was very, very quick. A very fast rider, very strong rider, so don't look for him to be fading very much.
Mike Brown, the leader, 7 laps into this one, just short of halfway right now. A 15-lap event, and you're watching Shea Bentley on the number 104 being chased by Branden Jesseman on the 26.
Remember we talked about how one small mistake and you go from a chance to a chump in just one bump, and Branden Jesseman with a small mistake went from a strong lead now to a distant third place. He's got to work on to get by Bentley so he doesn't get his goggles too roosted up and head after Brown if he wants still a shot at this win.
Bentley with his fastest lap of the race after he went down, so he's really on a mission, but he has not been able to do a whole lot with Shea Bentley. It seems like adrenaline carried him up to the back wheel of the rider in front of him, but now he's just got to use his head to try to get by and make the pass. We'll be back to the 125 main in a moment here at Daytona.
Now.
Back at Daytona, your leader is Mike Brown, but behind him things are changing quickly as side by side goes Shea Bentley and Branden Jesseman. Jesseman pulled ahead. Now he's got a couple of lap riders in front of him. He was actually repassed by Bentley briefly, but now is taking the lead and is starting to pull away. His only mission now is to go after Mike Brown, who is 7 seconds ahead of him.
Yeah, he's got to make up that 7 seconds, but if he runs the pace that he was, he can get there. Now that he has clean air, we're going to take a re-look at that pass. But ironically, he passed Shea Bentley in the same place where he went down. They come into that same exact corner where Branden fell down. He ran the outside, sort of used the lapper as a pick, got in there, got out, and made the move on Shea.
So Branden Jesseman now in second position. Take another look at it here from a slightly different angle. Little mistake.
Taking another look. Shea Bentley cases it really hard, throws his hand off the bar, and then Branden Jesseman just carried the momentum, and on by he went.
Although Bentley did pull alongside right there, but then began to lose ground, and Branden Jesseman continued on to maintain the second position. Now he's trying to pull away, and he's trying to bring back that 7-second advantage here. While Brown ran a minute 32nd lap last time, Jesseman ran a minute 31. He's not going to make up any ground that way.
There's always the fox and the hound. Now it is Brown, the fox, and now that Jesseman is the hound, so he can just chase, and all he has to worry about is catching Brown. He's been looking for the distance, and when you're out in front and you see someone catching you, that's when you start to tighten up.
Here's Mike Brown. Take another look. Not an error-free ride for him by any means, making some small mistakes here and there. That's going to cost him some time, and that one, yeah.
That one hurt. That one hurt as well. He may not slow him down much, but it definitely hurts and takes a little chink out of your armor. But when you're out in front and you're trying everything, this track is so tricky. A lot of people might think, it's just a sand track. But when you're trying to race fast, you have sand, you're going to hard pack jumps, you're doing all these different things, and you're trying to have your bike work the best for everything. It's a lot to consume when you're out there.
We're on lap number 10. Once again, downstairs, Greg White.
Well, thanks, Brian. Well, RJ, as you know, confidence is everything in this game. And down here in the pits, they're very concerned. Mike Brown's crew, he keeps looking back, and they're telling him, look ahead and concentrate. He's very self-critical of his riding, and he's been down a little bit on himself lately, so they're very interested to see if he can pull off this win, not only for the race team, for Kawasaki, but also for his confidence. Brian?
Fourth and a pair of seconds for Mike Brown thus far in the 3 races in the 125E series. That has him in second position. Brock Sellards behind him has a second place, a win, and a 7th position. So you can see that Brown, if nothing else, has been pretty consistent with 4th and 2 seconds.
Well, there's the difference. Like you said, it's still about 7 seconds. Actually, it's up to 9 seconds now. So Brown is running very, very strong. Jesseman can't afford to relax. He's got to keep pushing hard to get through. And Mike Brown takes his racing very serious. He's one of the only guys that can go out and run a bicycle, I've heard, with Ricky Carmichael and put him behind.
So Mike Brown making minute 32nd laps while Jesseman does a minute 31 behind him. So that's the reason why it went from 7 to 9 seconds. Brown is definitely on a very consistent and relatively quick pace, although Jesseman was capable of 127 laps earlier in the race. And you'd have to think he'll pick it up to that pace again if he wants to try to catch Mike Brown.
Yeah, right now it's going to be just a chess game. They're both going to run as fast as they can. The sun is just starting to come out. It looks, you can see the shine. But the track is in awesome shape. It's very tricky, very difficult for the riders to keep going fast. But there's your margin of distance. You see Mike Brown swapping from side to side, and that was Jesseman just going into the hairpin at the far side.
So weaving his way through some traffic now is Mike Brown, your leader, with 10 laps gone out of a 15-lap race here. He's got 2/3 of the distance, works inside the lap rider and jets away, still trying to put some distance and some riders perhaps in between himself and Branden Jesseman, who's chasing in second position. There goes Brown in one direction, just can't quite see him, but Branden Jesseman going the other way at the top of the screen. Mike Brown is your leader on his Kawasaki, looking for his first win of the 2003 season, and it'll be here at Daytona.
Anywhere.
4 laps to go now for Mike Brown, and his lead is back down in the 7-second range. So another minute and 32nd lap that time by Branden Jesseman to a minute 32 by Mike Brown has made the difference. Jesseman's coming after it.
Jesseman definitely wants this race. I mean, he was so strong in the heat race. When you're that dominant, you make a mistake like he did, he's going to be very critical of himself and push himself all the way to the checkered flag.
The lap riders getting the move over flag, and they're accommodating the officials here, the AMA officials, as Mike Brown kind of landed on top of that jump. Now he's just trying to make his way to the finish line. Again, inside 4 laps to go, and just under 8 seconds back is Branden Jesseman in second position right now, working his way past the same lap riders that Brown saw just a few seconds earlier.
All it's going to take is one hiccup by Brown, and Jesseman's going to be back in the game. But once again, same thing can happen to Jesseman. This is the kind of racetrack that it sneaks up and bites you. When you're racing the real technical indoor supercross tracks with the really peaky jumps, you know when you make a mistake. Out here, you're racing along, and all of a sudden the track just bites you and you go down. Or if you just even let off, it'll drop you down a second in the lap time.
Picking his way through the whoops there, and still no Branden Jesseman in immediate sight as they work their way over this double jump here.
Triple jump to some. Now that blue and yellow flag is the move over flag. That lets the riders know that the leaders are coming up behind them to get out of the way or just to hold their line. A lot of times they'll emphasize that in the riders meeting. Don't move from one side to the other because the guy might be passing you, but just hold your line and the leaders will adjust as they come up to you.
He went past the 757. That was Kevin Johnson, who won the last chance qualifier to get into this 125 main. So he's gone a lap down. He's running in 13th position. So your leader, Mike Brown, has only 12 riders on the lead lap with him.
Our race for third place, Shea Bentley has dropped his goggles. That's going to be trouble. Brock Sellards is coming up behind him. So that is the race on the track right now. The first and second have moved out. Their gap between each other, 9 seconds.
Whoa, Brown, there's the mistake.
There's the mistake that we were talking about. The same thing, just a simple layover. Let's see what this does for Jesseman. Still doesn't give him enough ground to get on his tail.
Branden Jesseman saw Mike Brown go down and get back up very quickly, so the gap is going to be significantly smaller, but Mike Brown still has a pretty good cushion to work with behind him.
He's probably just now exhaling. We're going to take another look at this. We've got 2 different angles. Mike Brown comes in. He's been running this jump, landing, sitting down, puts the foot out as he comes into the corner, just sort of drops his front wheel and hooks as he comes around, hooks his foot, and he just tips over. You know, I mean, that happens with this kind of, with the sand. Watching here, as he jumps off, notice he sits down, gets his foot, puts a lot of weight onto the front wheel. As he digs into the berm, it hooks his leg, pulls his leg back, and down he goes.
He fell right over, but he still kept the lead.
It is the less of the 2 evens between Jesseman's crash and Brown's crash, but still a crash nevertheless.
So the difference now is 6 seconds, and the battle for third is heating up as Shea Bentley comes into the clutches of Brock Sellards. They're only about a second apart, and you can see how far that is here on the Daytona Supercross track.
Every lap that Shea Bentley comes up on is going to kill him because you can see, he has to close his eyes. He can't see around these guys, so every time that he comes up behind somebody, he's basically losing time to Sellards, and that's when Sellards is making the room on him right there.
Just a matter of time, you would think, before Brock Sellards, who still has his goggles, would be able to make a pass of Shea Bentley, who does not. They both work past the lap rider, and Sellards still trying to get up there.
That worked out very well. That Steve Boniface was in that first turn crash with Mills, and so 2 riders that are normally up front, Mills and Boniface, were stuck in the back because they were in a first turn crash. But here we're looking at Shea Bentley, and here's Brock Sellards trying to work his way back up to him. So these 2 riders working very hard late in the race.
Late in the race indeed, 13 laps gone, 2 to go for the leader. Not everybody has crossed start-finish line to finish up 13 laps, but 2 laps remain for the leader, Mike Brown. Branden Jesseman just 6 seconds back, and it's difficult to say whether those 6 seconds can be made up on the racetrack. It's going to take another mistake by Mike Brown in order for Jesseman to be able to get it.
If Jesseman starts running lap times like he did earlier, he could get after him. Now we're showing a white flag, so we only have 1 lap to go. So Jesseman's going to have to pull something out of his hat. He better have something up his sleeve if he's going to try to get it. But there are a lot of lappers. Brown could get caught up.
He held the gap at the same 6-second margin. So Mike Brown just has to cruise another lap here. The longest lap in Supercross is here at the Daytona International Speedway. So Mike Brown has to make that entire minute 30-second lap. He'll be the winner here today.
Watching Shea Bentley still running very strong. My hat's off to him. It's really, really hard to run out there, even by yourself, with that much sand clicking in your eyes and stuff. And so he's doing a great job. But Mike Brown is the man of the hour. He's out in front. If he doesn't make a mistake, he'll bring home this win.
Took another look back there, probably to the chagrin of his crew, as we heard Greg White report on. They don't want him to look back. They only want him to look forward. forward. The only one thing waiting for him is the finish line for Mike Brown. There's still riders going down on the racetrack. Here's the number 104, Shane Bentley, still holding off Brock Sellards with a tremendously gritty ride to get on the podium.
Yeah, Shane's made a good comeback, but once again, we're watching Brown just not making any mistakes, not over jumping. He's going to go ahead and probably lose that lead, lose that gap that he has, but he's going to walk home with the checkered flag unless he makes a really big mistake.
Mike Brown working his way towards the finish line and doesn't have far to go. Just through this section of small jumps that bit David Villeman earlier in the heat races. Mike Brown now comes around a stalled rider. One more turn to go as he makes the left. He'll see the finish line jump, and for the first time in the 2003 season, the 125e Supercross, Mike Brown comes home a winner. Yeah, that makes him mighty happy.
Very, very happy. Branden Jesseman, then Bentley, then Sellards. These guys have all put in really, really gritty rides. And my hat's off to Mike Brown. He stayed in the game and never gave up.
Lynching his eyes across the finish line comes Shea Bentley to take third position behind Branden Jesseman by about 4 seconds, and just a few seconds ahead of Brock Sellards. So Mike Brown is celebrating. He's going to paint his own personal signature on the big DAY-TONA at Daytona International Speedway.
He also runs that Dale Earnhardt number 3, so a little respect to Dale.
There you go. Mike Brown winning here at Daytona. Something that he has not done in the past. Not only is it his first win of the 2003 season, it is his first win here at Daytona International Speedway. No wonder he was so happy crossing the start-finish line.
I mean, this is a big event. I've always thought if you can win the opener at Anaheim and win Daytona, those are the two biggest races of the year. So for Mike Brown to walk home with his victory is going to mean a lot to Mitch Payton and the whole Pro Circuit team.
So he's posing for the photographers right now and being congratulated. As you can see, our Greg White standing by to talk to Mike Brown, the winner of this race. So let's go downstairs to Greg White.
Mike, that was an awesome race. Even with mistakes, you still pulled off that victory in fine style.
Yeah, for sure. You know, all I had to do was just ride and try not to make as many mistakes as I did. I was lucky that Branden made a mistake, and, you know, I got some distance on him there. So, and I made a mistake back there, so I think he gained it back up. And I'm just pumped. This is the biggest win after my national championship 2 years ago, and I just want to keep it going.
Well, congratulations. Brian?
Our congratulations to Mike Brown as well, winning on a Kawasaki, something that Ricky Carmichael did earlier in his career in 250. Here you can see the top 10, Brown, Jesseman, and Bentley, who held off Brock Sellards to take that final podium spot. Didn't see a lot of Kelly Smith. He just rode a very calm, quiet race into 5th position. The rest of the results from the Daytona Supercross 125 main event here today. And what a terrific one it was. For Mike Brown, a day to remember, no question about it. We've still got a lot more memories in store for you, so enjoy a few, and we'll come back and give you some more.